Welcome back to Roadtrip Sessions.
Hello there.
Number 3. We're back in the car and it's raining today. So we thought we'd talk about bike maintenance and bike cleaning, you mentioned.
Yeah, whether or not, you know, riding trails, your bikes don't really tend to get as dirty, especially if you're riding street, and whether or not you even need to clean them, or if it's important. You know, and yeah, we just thought we'd have a little chat about it, and yeah, see where the conversation leads. And yeah, chat about some routine maintenance that we think
people should do.
Yeah, people should do. You know, what we both think's important. Obviously, we've got different views on it and what we do, and yeah, we just thought it'd be interesting.
Yeah, we've got slightly different views. I do think it's important, but clearly I don't look after my bike as much as you do.
No, but
I don't know anyone does.
No, I mean, I'm obviously completely. I mean, I'm weird, but I mean, I'm definitely got some OCD tendencies towards that. I mean, it's not a bad thing when it comes to bike maintenance, obviously, but yeah, you don't have to look after your bike as
rigorously,
as tenderly as I do, but you know, I mean, I think that a lot of people could take certain steps that, you know, wouldn't take a lot of time out of their day after a ride, and it would, you know, like greatly improve.
Help themselves.
Yeah, it would really help their bikes, and it would like extend the life of a lot of their components as well.
I was one of those people that I started riding when I was like 15, and at that time I didn't have any experience with anything, to the point like I remember riding with a friend and getting a puncture and him having to show me how to use a puncture repair kit. But then as you start needing to do stuff to the bike, I mean, cleaning is kind of obvious.
Thing is, what most people don't realise is that cleaning, you know, like people think that cleaning is something that's optional, and they don't see it as maintenance, but cleaning is maintenance. It is.
Do you anything to your chain?
Oh yes, yeah, you do. Like, you know,
I don't.
Yeah, people don't think that they need to clean the chain, but the chain picks up crap and dust and becomes a grinding paste because you oil it and you grease it, and it turns into a grinding paste, and then it's basically an abrasive, and that's what wears out your chain. Sludge. Yeah, exactly, and that's what wears out your chain. That's why I mean, your chain shouldn't be black. It shouldn't. Metal itself isn't black.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I actually degrease my chains when I get them, and I use a fine oil. I actually use GT85, just because it smells really good, and it's got PTFE in it, which is very low friction, and it's really easy to get hold of, and it coats the chain in a really thin film of oil, and it clings to it enough so that I can go out on a few rides, and then when I wash the bike, it gets washed off of it. It doesn't stick to it so much that I have to scrub it for hours. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it, you know, gets on your brushes. And then when you've rinsed the bike, all you've got to then do is then rinse it, put a rag over your discs, because you know you don't want to get your discs, you know, covered in oil at GT85, and then you just reapply the GT85, and that also rinses off all the water that you've then, you know, covered all of your chain in, because that all rust your chain, which is why people don't want to wash their bike as well, because they're worried that it's just going to rust it, but it's not if you reapply all the lubrication you've just washed off. But
what else is important to maintain regularly?
You want to make sure that there's no weird sounds. I mean, and this is very, you know, like there's a lot of bikes, and I don't even have to name people. Like most people.
You need to name people.
I mean, even just people like Charlie Rolls, Sean Goddard. George's bike is probably one of the most solid now because I work on it all the time. Yours is really solid now.
What have you noticed on Charlie Rolls' bike?
His chain. and
What?
that's
Loose?
Yeah, loose.
Not
But that's a poor tensioner design. I'm in the wrong lane here. I need to move over. Hold that.
No,
thought.
I'm not sure because we're on North Circular, aren't we?
Oh. It
No.
says I got.
Yeah, no, you're okay. Are you okay? No, you're not
No,
okay.
I'm not okay. I'm definitely not okay. I need to be in this.
Driving
lane.
in London is not fun.
Driving in London is really not okay. Anyway, I'm in the right lane now, I think. Yes, I am. Yeah, so, yeah, the tensioners, because he's got bolt through, he has to run tensioner, but he
Right.
definitely could modify it or just add more tension to it or just put some foam around the chainstay, and that would quieten that up. And it would make his riding even smoother than it already is, if that was possible. I actually go over and Loctite all of my rotor bolts all the time, because I've had discs come loose because of all the forces
so
and
annoying.
stuff. When your rotors come loose, because I mean it usually happens on the back.
And you'll be out on a ride,
and you'll be
so
out
it's
on
not like you're carrying around a
T25.
Yeah.
I mean you are, but it's always on a multi-tool and it's shit. You can't do it up tight enough.
yeah, or you will be. I've had it where I've been obsessing and I think something's loose and I'm still keep tight, and then you can over tighten and then round off
or
the
you can
bolt.
round them off, yeah, and it's annoying. So I actually degrease all of my bolts when I build the bike, and then I use some blue Loctite 242, I think it is.
It comes with a little dot on the actual bolts, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, I use tie bolts, so they don't come with thread lock on them. And if you want to reuse your bolts or you change your rotor, then it comes off, so you can't reuse the Loctite on them. You know. But yeah, so I get the Loctite, and the blue stuff is the medium strength, which means you can get it undone with normal hand tools. Whereas if you use the green stuff, you'll never get it undone, and you have to use blowtorch to get it off. It's that strong. So don't use that stuff. But yeah,
Blue.
and that means basically it resists vibration, and I use that for all my brake bolts. I've had those come undone, and it means I can do them up to the correct torque that they're meant to, and you're less likely to snap your calipers.
Yeah.
Which is what I've done in the past, and I know John Shrewsbury's done.
Quite a few people have snaps.
Yeah, and it's because
brake
people,
adapters.
I found I snap less calipers, or I haven't snapped any since I've been torquing them up with a torque wrench, because people just over tighten them and they basically are squashing the material on the caliper.
Yeah.
And it just like splays it out, and then
Eventually you get a crack.
yeah, like eventually you get a crack.
Yeah. One thing that I've
I think that's a good idea.
not understood is when you see pictures of people that have stripped the threads in their cranks.
Yeah.
How would you do that apart from cross-threading them? Obviously, when you're putting a pedal on, you want to be holding the thread first, not yanking it and tightening it up with an Allen key or a spanner straight away, because the thread might not be in correctly. So if you do it while you're holding it, the thread's on correctly, and then once it starts
yeah,
tightening up, you can do it
it's
properly.
like the finer the thread, the easier it is to cross thread it, because because you don't feel it's harder to feel the thread go on initially,
Yeah.
isn't it? And which is why it's really important to to do it on by hand, and then it will bind up, and then it's very clear, or at least it's going to be more evident that you're gonna struggle
going in
getting it on.
correctly.
Yeah, but you should always grease your thread before you put it on. Obviously, that's why they say a BB thread, you should always grease it.
But,
you should never Loctite a BB thread, I don't think, because again it's so fine, you'll never get it out. And they're fine threads so that you can apply a lot of torque to them, so they won't undo.
We're going back to a pedal. Do you know any other way
Pedal.
of how you can strip out your crank threads from when you put your pedals on?
Oh, we're talking about a crank thread.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Well, they're both
Like,
threads, aren't they? So
you can strip them out. Wow.
I see people where they're showing pictures of their crank and their pedal, and they've stripped the threads where the pedal goes in. I don't I don't know how you do that unless you're cross-threading it.
No, I mean, there's two ways. There's two ways you can do that, and I'm pretty sure these are the only two ways. You either cross-thread it, putting it in, and then the other way, which I'm pretty sure is the only other way to do it, is that your pedals come loose, and you don't do them up for so long that you ride with them loose.
And that's
and it wears the threads in them, and you know, like you may keep doing them up by hand, but you never actually do them up tight enough,
and the threads maybe have already got a bit damaged,
and
so
yeah, you damage the threads, and then eventually the threads are so damaged because they're only aluminium cranks most of the time.
Yeah. If anyone's
and then that's it.
had any other problems with the threads in their crank arms, then I'd be interested to know what the cause was if it wasn't one of them.
I'm pretty sure that's yeah. You know, I mean, I don't think there's any other way you can damage your threads. Yeah, I always make sure there's either grease in there or Loctite. I actually run with Loctite in my pedals because I don't want them to come loose.
Yeah.
I used to run with grease, but again, it's one of those things that they do happen to come loose because of the, you know, the forces involved. So I just run with a bit of the blue Loctite because it's not something you want to come loose every, you know, like you're not taking pedals off, you know, regularly, are you?
No.
So yeah, so, you know, so that's something I do up quite tight. That's why you have pedal spanners. You know, they're designed to do up quite tight. Again, there is a torque for that, but that's one thing I don't really tend to torque up.
Yeah. I suppose another common thing is people's headsets coming loose.
Oh, the headsets. God, yes.
And then knowing the difference between your pads rocking if you've got discs. Or something. Do you get pad rock with Miguras?
You do. Yeah, you can. You get pad rock with a lot of discs.
I haven't run Miguras in well over 10 years, I don't think.
No, I got a bit of pad rock with mine, but I run tape on the back of my on the back of all my pads in my trials bikes.
Yeah.
And after they bed in, you don't really notice the tape's on there. I use Gorilla Tape a little bit on the back of each pad.
I did a short video on that.
Yeah.
So I'll stick a link up there.
Yeah, the link's up there, and it's absolutely fine. No issues at all, and it gets with any pad rock. It doesn't work with all. I mean, you can do it on all brakes, but it doesn't solve the issue on all brakes. If you're
not always effective. Yeah.
But on Miguras it's fine. On Shimano brakes it's fine.
And then going back to headsets.
Yeah, going back to headsets.
Easiest way to turn your bars 90 degrees.
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
You haven't got the.
I mean, you don't actually need to have your brake on to do it. You can just move your bars forward and backwards, and then you. The easiest way to tell if it's your headset is to place your hand at the crown, so the top of the fork leg, and then you just basically move your weight forward and backwards, almost to try and like squish the tyre forward and backwards, and you'll be able to feel if there's any movement between the head tube and your fork.
Yeah.
And if there is movement, don't over tighten your headset because that's almost as bad as running it loose.
And you'll know if you've over tightened your headset because the bars are stiff.
Yeah, I always
it's all squashed.
I always tighten my headset just so that my bars are able to, like, I want there to be as little friction as possible, because believe it or not, you actually notice it when you're riding, or at least I do anyway. So I kind of lean back on the bike and sit on the back wheel, if you like, and I have the bars so they're straight, and I just like flick them very gently, you know, like, and I lean the bike slightly, just so the bars would want to fall, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
So you can see them fall.
Yeah.
So that you know there's no friction.
Yeah. Just so I know there's no friction, and if they can't do that, I know the headset's too tight. And if I have to loosen it off so much that the headset's loose, then I need a new headset.
Yeah.
So you know, that's how I gauge it basically.
And then the downfall, if you do run with your headset loose, is that rocking can actually flare the head tube on aluminium or metal frames.
Yeah, it can.
And then that can't be undone.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, if it's loose enough, then it can actually. Yeah,
constant rocking.
Yeah, that's it.
You don't get that as much on a normal bike either. With
it adds,
trials bikes can land into.
Yeah, that's it, because it gives it enough time, enough space to like impact the side of the
head tube.
Yeah, the side of the head tube, and it can actually damage it, and it damages your bearings. And yeah, obviously you should always keep it greased. Again, when you wash your bike, always make sure that, you know, it's all greased, because otherwise water's going to stay in there, that kind of thing. I go a bit over the top on my rims as well, because I run disc brakes. I can get away with spraying a bit of GT85 on my rims and my nipples, because I run alloy nipples. I don't want them to corrode over time, so I spin the wheel up and I spray some of that over all the nipples, and then I wipe that with a rag, and what that does is it applies a film so that when it gets wet and when I wash it again, all the water runs off, and if I want to build another set of wheels up or true my wheel, I'm not going to snap a nipple off and it's not going to corrode. So that also helps. Again, it's not something you really need to do, but yeah, it just really helps.
Yeah,
and
tip.
Like, it just takes like 5 seconds, because after you've already done the chain, you know, that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that's literally like the only 2 things I need to oil on my Trails bike. I don't have to do anything else, because it's rigid frame, rigid fork. Apart from washing it, and if I'm honest, I just use some snow foam.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, I'm going in that. Yeah, I just use some snow foam. You know, because
cleaning.
Yeah, because it's usually just dusty, and unless I'm going to somewhere like, you know, Charlie's or Rad and it's muddy,
Yeah.
that's what I really need to do.
Okay, let's summarise.
Let's summarise.
Don't ride with any bolts loose.
Don't ride with any bolts loose.
Don't over tighten stuff.
No.
Grease your headset.
Yeah, grease your headset. Maybe don't grease your chain, but it's better than running it dry. Always
Oil your
replace your chain at least once a year. Make sure you keep an eye on your components so they're safe. It's good to wash your bike every now and then, but you don't have to do it as regularly as, say, a mountain bike.
Yeah.
You know, and
don't cross thread things.
yeah, don't cross thread things, and just try and be a bit more mechanically sympathetic.
Look after your stuff.
Look after your things and they'll look after you.
Cool. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.